Hey guys, my name is Ibreez and I currently work as a doctor in the NHS. Welcome to our next lesson where we help you plan and figure out your Plab 2 exam. If this is the first time you're checking out our channel, welcome. Basically what we do is we run a website that's totally free known as roadtok.com, and it will explain the ins and outs about everything related to the United Kingdom and what it takes for you to work as a doctor in the NHS. So if you've not already, please stalk us on all of our social media. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. So congrats, you passed Plab 1 and now you're thinking about Plab 2. A lot of people get really stressed out about the Plab 2 process because it involves applying for a visa. And everyone's super scared about what if my visa gets rejected and I can never come to the UK and take Plab 2. Slow your roll. Let's think it out logically for a second. So if you're already in the United Kingdom for whatever reason on a valid visa, you don't have to worry about getting a separate special visa for Plab 2. All Plab 2 requires is that you're in the United Kingdom legally. That means you're there on a tourist visa, on a business visa, a dependent, a student, whatever visa it is, you can take Plab 2 on it because you're already in the country or you're already legally allowed to be in the country. There are a lot of common misconceptions about the Plab 2 visa or how to apply. I think the two biggest are, first of all, you must be employed. You have to have a job to get a Plab 2 visa, otherwise you just won't get that visa. And the second one is you've got to have like £1 billion in your bank account, or whoever your sponsor is in their bank account, otherwise you won't get a Plab 2 visa. Now, we have an article talking about financial sponsorship, which we have linked, that will really talk you through the entire process. But what I want you guys to take away from this video is it's not an impossible task. 1 trillion people do this every day. Maybe not 1 trillion, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. But really, it is not that difficult of a process. You can do it all yourself. I know a ton of people who are like, oh my gosh, but I need somebody to do it for me. I can't understand the entire stuff. Dude, you're a doctor. You can understand it. It's really basic stuff. If you're super scared and you're really confused, we have articles talking you through the entire process of applying for the visa, which we've linked. If you're still, kind of confused or you're scared about it, ask questions. There's so many forums and so many groups and so many people who are willing to help. If you are still like, you know what, no, I can't do this, I don't have the time, I don't want to figure this out, and you want to pay someone to apply for your visa for you, please keep in mind, just because an agency or someone else has done it for you does not guarantee that you get the visa any more than somebody applying for it themselves. Especially because we know of several incidences where individuals have paid someone else or an agency to do it, and they have misrepresented either their finances or their situation, and it has led to a lot of problems. So even if you go through an agency or through someone else, please make sure you know what they're submitting before they submit it, because it can be a really bad thing for you in the long run if you are caught, misrepresenting yourself to the United Kingdom authorities. So the next step really is the Plab 2 exam itself. Whether or not you choose to go to an academy is up to you, but how much time you really devote to the exam is really paramount, and how you practice for it. It doesn't matter how many things you read or what you've understood or what you think will come to you that day. You have to be fluid in your motions. All of y'all are doctors. You know what you've got to do. You know how to be, and that's what's most important. I think the trickiest part about the Plab 2 exam is actually just understanding what the United Kingdom does for certain things. The stuff about ethics or safeguarding, or the things about how the UK does certain things or how things are prescribed or asked for. Those are, I think, the points where most international graduates get confused or stopped up because they're not used to doing that in their own home country. The rest of medicine's the same. I mean, you know how to examine a patient, you know what you need to be saying, how to talk to a patient, and how to break news to them depending on the situation. Now, if you're someone who overthinks it, let's break it down like this. If you look at the rubric or the grading criteria for Plab 2, they're basically just looking at 3 things, guys. They're looking at your interpersonal skills, how well you are at data gathering or history taking, and your management. So if you already have fantastic interpersonal skills, you're already kind of winning it. You get 1/3 of the way there. And of course, you know how to take history. You're a doctor. You know what's up. And then there's management. You've got a general idea of what you need to do. So if you're gonna look at this from that perspective, it's really pretty easy to understand what they want because they've told you what they want. I mean, in our article where we talk about what to do if you fail Plab 2, we've kind of gone in depth about what they're asking for and what they're looking at. If you've not taken Plab 2 yet, I would still say give that article a read because you may just get some insight about how you can approach things. And it's really good for you to just know what they're looking for. Don't think you need to spend a particular amount of time about something and that, for the history taking or for the management, because they're not looking at it chunks of time in that sense. How you're talking to the patient in real life, you aren't thinking that way. You're just acting as you would with a person in real life because that's what's happening. So really, if you want to be good in Plab 2, just be a normal doctor, which is what you already are. Don't think that you have to fake anything. You know about interpersonal skills. You know if a person's crying, what you would do in a real life situation. You wouldn't just look at them and just be like, well, that person's crying. I'm just gonna stare at them awkwardly for a couple of minutes and not say anything. Of course you wouldn't. You would go, you would be like, hey, what's going on? You would try and make them feel better, maybe give them a box of tissues, give them a second to recuperate, and then understand where they're coming from. If somebody's very angry, you wouldn't make them more angry and start shouting at them. Of course not. You would try and understand where their anger is coming from. And these all come into your interpersonal skills. When it comes to history taking, a lot of times they're going to give you leading questions. I mean, it's an exam. Just like when you take the Socratic method or any of the ways to understand why the person's come there. If they tell you, ooh, I have a stomach ache, well, of course your next question won't be, so what do you think you're going to do tomorrow morning? Of course not, that wouldn't make sense. You want to know more about that stomach pain and understand why that person would come into hospital with that stomach pain. And then finally, management. Even if you're at a complete loss, I think the easiest way to approach is symptomatic management. If that person has told you they've come in with a ton of nausea and you suspect food poisoning, well, first thing, if you want to think about management, you're going to think about what you can do to treat their nausea. And if you're thinking maybe it's a little bit of food poisoning, you can also think about, all right, well, if this person's going to be sick and they're not eating well, I have to think about making sure that they are staying hydrated and that we are giving them something to keep them going, because you wouldn't want somebody to just be vomiting and vomiting in a real hospital setting. You would think about how you could manage them. And it's that simple A to E. If you know what's going on with that person, even if you're not completely sure what the diagnosis is, treat what's in front of you. And if you keep that in mind, you won't get lost. If you finish before the bell rings, that's fine. Sit there calmly and quietly and wait for the bell to ring. If the bell rings while you're still, speaking about whatever you're speaking about, just finish it up and that's it. You're done. The bell's done. They're not going to hear about what you've said after that. If you think you've done terrible in a station, don't even think about it anymore. Clear your mind, get to the next station. You don't know, because the way the grading is set up, it's not that, yes, they've got that rubric, but they're setting that rubric against how everyone else performed that day. So if you think you did terrible in a station, maybe everyone else did worse than you, and you've actually managed to get pretty good amount of marks because, well, it did better than anyone else that day. So don't think it's a hard and fast rule, just like with Plab 1, how they're going to be grading you. It's going to be exactly this or exactly that. Instead, think about your holistic approach to the patient and what you're doing in that situation. The Plab 2 exam, in my opinion, will probably be the easiest exam you'll ever take, because you will just be doing what you're normally doing every day. You're seeing a patient. The only thing that may be different is that you're seeing the patient in a UK healthcare setting, so that's what you have to adapt your mind to. What would they want you to do within the NHS? So I think the key points for you to be confident in the Plab 2 exam is, first of all, own it. You're a doctor, you know what's up. Second of all, don't let what anyone else tells you get into your brain that you won't be able to do well. I think the biggest thing that really puts me off when people message us about exams is they say that they're an average student. I don't know what an average student is. I don't know what average they're looking at or what mean, median, mode that they came to that they're like, I'm an average student. You got into medical school, you are a doctor. By no means would I consider you to be an average anything, because you already showed that you were above whatever was going on in your country or wherever you studied to get into medical school. That is a big achievement. So don't sell yourself short and say, well, I don't think I can study very well, or I'm going to need more time, or, I'm just average. Don't say that you're average. You're exceptional. You're an amazing person because you've already gotten this far, and this is literally the last step before you can get registration to apply to be a doctor in this country. So after you've taken that negative thought out of your brain and you've put in front of yourself what you have to do, really it's about practicing. However much time you want to dedicate, practice, practice, practice. If you have no one to practice with, put a mirror in front of yourself and practice with yourself. Videotape yourself and practice that way. Do not tell yourself, well, I need this, I need that, and then don't find solutions, because I think that's what stops us up when we start second guessing our abilities. You shouldn't do any of that because you know what you have to do. When you go to the actual exam, they're going to do like an ID check there. They're going to verify you are the person that you say that you are. You're going to have 18 stations that are going to be actual stations, and 2 of them are going to be rest stations. They'll go through a video, they'll talk you through the process, they'll give you a cup of tea and a biscuit, and you'll relax. You know what? You're going to do fantastic on the exam because you know you are good. There are going to be a variety of scenarios. They may be ethical situations. There may be procedures that you have to do. Maybe you just have to talk to a patient. Maybe you have to talk to a patient's family member. Whatever it is, it's going to be outside the door. You're going to read about it, and you're going to go in, introduce yourself to the patient or whoever is there, and you're going to go about doing whatever you have to do. We have an article where we talk about how to prepare and generally know what you need to know for the Plab 2 course and the entire exam itself, which we have linked in. But really, guys, I think it's a good idea for you to be as confident as possible in the exam setting. If you know everything, but you can't make that person there who's grading you know that you know everything, it doesn't really mean much in the long run. And I don't mean that you have to then just, start reading out Davidsons to them or anything like that to make them convinced that you understand medicine. There's so much more to this exam than just, basic knowledge. It's about empathy. It's about listening. It's about being that type of person that if you were the patient, you would be like, you know what, that person, that doctor really understood where I was coming from and knew what I wanted to hear and how they talked to me or how they made me feel, made me understand exactly what I needed to know about that situation or whatever the scenario is, okay? Don't think that, the Plab 2 exam is something completely impossible for you to pass. So many people pass it every year, and it isn't anything if you fail it. Okay, if you fail it, it's out of the way, you can take it again. We have an article talking about what to do if you fail Plab 2. I hope it's not something that any of you ever have to experience, but I think sometimes you just need to shake off the nerves the first time and reapproach it, because I think the only time anyone actually ever fails this exam is because they terrify themselves. So don't stress out about the exam. Go there, own the exam, pass it, get it out of the way, and be prepared for the next big step, which is GMC registration, which is what we're going to talk about in the next lesson.